The Waiting Game. On this special edition of the Lawyer's Lounge podcast, we're going to take you behind the scenes of waiting on a jury verdict, what it feels like, and what are the emotions that come with not knowing what's about to happen. Because this is in real time. I am literally waiting on a jury verdict. My producer has my phone just in case the judge calls. And we felt like it was important to take you behind the scenes, the emotions and the thoughts that go into it in real time as we explore what it means to wait after you've done everything you could do. On this edition of the Lawyer's Lounge, I'm attorney Keith Johnson. So as we start this podcast, it is about 9:30 in the morning. I just finished a 5-day federal jury trial, and the jury has been deliberating for 3 hours. We closed and did closing arguments, finished about 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon, and the jury got the case after the judge did some final administrative things. The jury got the case about 3:30, and they deliberated until approximately 6:45. When they sent the judge a note that they needed another 4 to 8 hours to go through the evidence. And so that's where we are right now. So I am at my office, which is about a mile down the street from the federal courthouse. And these are the moments that attorneys will tell you are the most difficult, because we're trained to know what to do to handle the situation. We're trained to take action. But in waiting, we all know there's nothing that you could do. Quite literally, the case is in the jury's hands. And I reminded them of that yesterday during my closing argument. I said, I have done everything that I could do. The case does not belong to me anymore. My client's fate is in your hands. And I did that to try to remind them of the weight and the burden that they have in deciding what is the right thing to do. This was a very difficult trial, because of the opponent being the Department of Justice, the federal government, quite literally. It was difficult because the FBI was handling the case. It was difficult because I had prosecutors who were flown in from around the country who specialize in these kind of cases. And it was difficult because federal trials are not common. So it had been over a decade since I had a federal trial. I'm proud to report that I believe I did a really good job telling my client's story. I believe that I stood up in the face of a very worthy opponent. And I believe that I did my very best. And so I can take solace in that. I can feel good about that. But ultimately, I'm a competitor. I want to win because I want my client to not have to do a day in confinement. I want to win because I see the look on his mom's face after I give a good presentation on cross-examination and she gives me a wink. I want to win because the way that his dad shakes my hands and tells me, thank you for what you're doing for my son. So those things matter because I care about it. But at the end of the day, the healthy thing to do is to detach a little bit. And so that's what I'm trying to do right now. My client called me this morning, just wanting to make sure everything was fine. And I told him just hang around the general area because we'll get a phone call and then we'll have to go down to the courthouse. And so we don't know when that phone call could be, but I wanted to get in front of the mic and let people know that this is a real thing. There are people all across this country who have to feel these types of emotions. This is not the thing that is reported on the miniseries. This is not the kind of thing that's newsworthy. When you're kind of in the waiting room, maybe we'll name the episode The Waiting Room, because it's really where we are at this point. We're not at the finish line, but we're not back where we started. We're in the midst where you have to exercise faith, where you can't beat yourself up as a lawyer, because there's always, as the old saying goes, there's the closing that you plan to give. There's the closing argument that you give, and there's a closing argument that you wish you would have given. Because we nitpick. If you're good at what you do, you always want to be a little better, right? Some of my best closing arguments are in the shower. And I try to grab my phone real quick and go to the notes app and write down some thoughts. But ultimately, you got one shot. And so I want to challenge the listeners to think about a time where you had to wait, where you didn't have any control over the situation. How did you react to it? Where does faith come in at? I've been talking to God a lot, and I've been trying to ask for a few things. One of them was strength to try this case, because it was a case where we had over 30,000 pages of documents, where I had people who were very experienced on the other side, where I had a judge who was a very esteemed jurist, and where I had a client who had never been in trouble before and had never been through the criminal justice system. So those are all challenges that you have and that you face. So what's the rest of my day going to be like? I'm going to try to get away from thinking about the case because there's nothing that I can do at this point in time. I'll likely make a few phone calls on some other cases, but ultimately just try to keep my mind clear because once again, there's nothing that I can do about it. But I want to leave you with this on this bonus episode. I'm proud to be the man in the arena. You should look that poem up by Teddy Roosevelt. I don't have it memorized, but I remember seeing it when I was in college, and I'll glance at it from time to time. And it just talks about how the man in the arena doesn't concern himself with what the crowd is saying, doesn't concern himself with what the people who are going to say what he should have done are saying. The man in the arena has to have courage, even facing fears, because I had some fears in this case, but I still kept walking forward. I didn't get intimidated. I remembered who I was and who I do it for. But regardless of the win or the loss, to be in the arena means that you had the heart to step up when others didn't. You had the heart to keep going when others would have quit. I'm no hero, but somebody had to tell this man's story. Somebody had to face the federal government and speak on his behalf with passion, and that's what I did. And so regardless of the outcome of the case, I'm proud to be the man in the arena in this case, to be able to step up, to be able to think quickly on my feet in that courtroom and be able to tell the story forcefully of my client. So at the end of the day, if the jury agrees with me, then that'll be a win of maybe my career. And if I come up a little short, I'll still care for my client. We'll file that appeal and we'll try to navigate what's next. Because at the end of the day, it's about service to the client. It's about being there for somebody in their lowest moment, in their most anxious moment, trying to be calm in a storm. So, as always, the past is behind you. There's nothing you can do about it. Don't look back. There's nothing that can come from looking back. The future, it belongs to God. It's in His hands. That's what this podcast has been about, trusting and believing and waiting. We are not called to predict anything. We're just called to trust who holds everything together. The present is where the magic happens. Be where you need to be. Even when you want to peek around the corner, like I feel right now, I'm going to be right here. I'm going to do what I can. I'm going to wait for the right time to take action. Until next time, salute. Yo. So we back. Remember we were talking about waiting on the verdict? You see, I ain't got my jacket on. I came out my jacket. We won the case. We beat the feds, the Department of Justice, the FBI. They flew in attorneys from out of town, like I said earlier, to come down to sleepy Augusta, Georgia, to try a case. And I knew it was going to be a big challenge. And I just found out that my client was acquitted of both charges. He's free to go, live his life. And it was a crazy thing, right? So I've been jittery all morning, trying to keep myself composed. The jury had a question around 11 o'clock, so we went over there, and the judge reads the question. It's a real formal process, so we're all in the courtroom. They wanted to review some of the statements again, so I'm like, oh, okay, what does that mean? But I'm hopeful, because if they're still asking questions 6 hours into their deliberations, there's a good chance something is not clear, which is good, right? Because the government, the federal government, by the way, didn't prove their case, or so I was hoping. And I went to grab a bite to eat, and I got a call around 1:30. So I had to rush over to the courthouse, and I'm telling you, my heart was jumping out of my chest. Because at that point in time, I know it's nothing that I can do, but your adrenaline starts pumping, and I couldn't find my keys. I'm like, where are my keys? I know I put them in my desk drawer. Where are my keys that were in my briefcase? And I went over to the courthouse. Security let me in to the complex, and I got there, and everybody was in the courtroom waiting. My client met me outside. We walked in together. And so it's a very formal process, right? What happens is the judge calls the jury out. The judge asks if the foreperson has a verdict. He said that he did. He passes it to the clerk. And so the judge looks at it first. So I have my head down the whole time. Like, I'm not trying to read the judge's facial expression. I'm about to find out in a few seconds myself. And so he asked the clerk to publish the verdict. So we got to stand up, like the movies, man. Like, this is a moment of truth. You don't want your knees to buckle, right? And she read off count 1, not guilty. Count 2, not guilty. And I had a little bit of an outburst. And the judge, who I think he likes me, by the way, Judge Hall, much respect to Judge Hall. He's a great judge. He's been on the bench for 18 years. He was appointed by George W. Bush back in 2007, I believe. Really, really fine judge. He let me try my case. And he said, all right, let's come to order. He knew I was excited. I was happy. And I'm sure you could see it in my face and maybe hear it even in my voice. Because when you have a challenge like this, where they dump 30,000 pages on you, where the prosecutor's a little arrogant, He tried the Ahmaud Arbery case. And that was a big case down here. Remember Ahmaud Arbery jogging in the neighborhood, these guys who have pickup trucks that follow him, they corner him, somebody videotapes it, and they kill him. And that made a lot of headlines, rightfully so. So there was a state case, and those guys got convicted, but then they also had a federal hate crime case, and this prosecutor tried that case. And so he would bring that up, And I would always say, this ain't a Ahmaud Arbery case. It's a different case. And so it feels good. It does. Because I'm a competitor. I don't boast, I don't brag, but I don't run away from the fight either. And so it was a good feeling shaking his hand after that case, because I was fighting all week, and I felt like they weren't expecting me to fight like that or have the ability to defend this case against 3 attorneys who went to Harvard and went to Michigan and went to these big schools. Well, I'm from North Augusta, man. And that's what we did. We defended this case with humility, because I have a good client, a good man who was railroaded, and now he's vindicated. So there we have it. Behind the scenes, real life was showing you things that nobody is showing you. Lawyers are not showing you this. We want to be vulnerable and walk you through what it's like to wait, not just what it's like on the back end, because everybody talks about the back end when everything's like, oh, guess what happened? I was willing to put this out knowing that there's a chance that I could lose the case. Because it's not about whether I look good. It's about knowing the process, documenting how the criminal justice system really works in real time with real people. And so I hope that you've learned something. I hope that this has been entertaining to you. The mini podcast where we're talking about real life things. And I want to leave you with this. I had a lot of opposition during this trial. I had clients complaining. I faced craziness every day almost. My phone went off at 2:30 in the morning playing random music. I have no idea how that happened. And I'm gonna tell you this. I felt like I was fighting the good fight. And I leaned on my mom a lot for encouragement and understanding. And I want to thank her for always believing in me and really basically raising me to think, ain't nobody better than you. You can do anything that you want to do in life. And so whatever mountain that you got to climb, whatever looks impossible, it hadn't met you yet. That has to be the mindset. Because there's nothing impossible with God. And there's definitely nothing impossible with God and a belief in yourself. And so this case is probably one of the hardest trials that I've had. Not because he was facing a life sentence, because he wasn't, but because of the opponent, because of the forum, being in federal court and having people come in from out of town with the credentials that they think that they're going to be able to use to run right over you. Didn't happen. Because just like David had the stone and the slingshot, I had my faith and my belief that I could stand up in front of that jury and take my one shot, my best shot, and slay the federal government. And that's what we did. I'm proud of it. Not too many lawyers can say they won a federal jury trial. I can. And on that note, salute.